The fifth installment of Russell Dauterman's X-Men Costumes Throughout the Year series features Emma Frost, and it's the variant cover for Inferno number 3. This cover features Emma Frost in pretty much every single outfit that she's ever worn into battle, and then some. There's an incredible 22 costumes featured, and I can't really think of any notable exclusions here. Perhaps the biggest two omissions were her AOA costume and that long green morph suit that she wore during the Phalanx Covenant, but neither of those really fit the vibe of this White Queen dream, so I can see why they were excluded. My opinion of Emma Frost is that she's the modernist's answer to rejuvenating the X-line. She's the only notable, newish member who has a comparable level of popularity today as all of the other mainstays do, like with Jean and Storm and Psylocke and Kitty. By new-ish, I mean she's someone who joined the team in like the past 2 decades or so. When you look at that timeline, there's a whole slew of new characters like Pixie and Armor who, while popular in like their own ways, are nowhere near the almost household name level that Emma is. It's not really fair to compare the levels of popularity between all of these characters though, because Emma has been around far longer than any of those new characters that have been introduced since the 2000s. She was a villainous member of the Hellfire Club for the 80s, then Headmistress of Generation X for the 90s, so the comic world has already been super saturated with Emma Frost for years on end. But I still think it's a commendable act for Emma to have lasted as long as she has among the X-Men and still come across as fresh. No one lasts in the X-Men lineup the way the mainstays do, so you're gonna always get a team with a Rogue and a Cyclops and a Gambit for sure, but it's all the others who have been introduced to the X-line since the end of the 90s who usually come and go like the wind. I mean, when was the last time Wraith did anything of interest? I think it's a credit to the development of Emma's character that she has lasted as long as she has in the X franchise, and not just as a team member, but as like a main character too. She's often placed in the middle of whatever main plot is happening, and she's never really regulated to the sidelines. I'm sure it's baked into her contract to forbid that from happening. A lot of the X characters are already well developed, but Emma was able to give the team something that it lacked, and that's really what is most interesting about her for me. None of the core group really has the same icy exterior and sardonic wit that she carries with her 24/7. She's got a haughty attitude and flaunts it, whereas everyone else keeps it pretty heroic and humble most of the time. Throwing her into the mix really gave the intra-team dynamics some great inherent conflict, and you're definitely not going to get that from a Pixie or an Armor. I think without a doubt that Emma is one of the greatest X characters of all time, even considering that her actual time on the team is pretty short-lived compared to so many of the others. But enough about this, let's get into the ranking. Here are 22 Emma Frost costumes ranked from my least favorite to my most favorite. Number 22, Generation X Bodysuit. This costume is probably Emma at her most basic, and basic is not a word often used to describe Emma Frost. The white bodysuit was something that Emma wore as her second Generation X costume. For pretty much the entire Generation X series, the students all wore similar-ish costumes that were like red bodysuits, but this was the first time that Emma followed suit and also suited up in a bodysuit. This is what she wore toward the tail end of the series when she was faced with a bunch of her old rivals who came looking to settle some old scores with her. One of the rivals was Bianca Laneige, who was a former business tycoon that Emma embarrassed, but Bianca didn't last for too long and who knows what she's up to now. More prominently, this was also the era where Emma faced off against her own sister, Adrienne Frost. Emma needed her help financially, and Adrienne agreed, but in the process, Adrienne tried to usurp Emma's role as the headmistress of the school and as White Queen of the Hellfire Club. Adrienne's meddling was too much for Emma, and after Adrienne's true colors culminated in Sync's death, Emma simply had enough of her sister's shenanigans and she shot her dead. This is pretty much how Generation X ended, with some of the characters going off to do great things and others becoming either cannon fodder or a vampire mother. Even though Emma was badass during this time, I don't really think this costume did much for her. Seeing her in a full-length bodysuit is fine, and it can be considered a nice change of pace from her usual scantily clad attire, but nothing about this bodysuit in particular is all that exciting to me. The gauntlets and the boots and the belt make it very superhero-y, which actually kind of veers on being a little bit too kitschy for Emma Frost. But at the end of the day, it really is just a solid white bodysuit with a zipper, and I mean, there's nothing really to write home about that. It kind of reminds me of that wetsuit that Psylocke wore for a little while on Utopia, mostly just because of the zipper. But that's the problem with Emma wearing something like this. It's just too generic for someone like her. Say what you will about Emma's usual attire, whether you like it skimpy or not, but the one thing that it objectively always is that it's distinct. Nothing Emma wears can usually be said to remind people of something other people wear. In fact, it would probably be the other way around. Seeing someone in a scantily clad white attire would probably evoke thoughts like, oh, that outfit reminds me of Emma Frost. Emma is a reference point in comics. She's the trendsetter, and so to put her in something as basic as this really does a disservice to her wardrobe. I mean, it's still nice. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little bit too blasé. Like, all I really get from this are shades of other skin-tight bodysuits worn by people like Colleen Wing or Dagger, or even Monet to a certain extent. Luckily, this costume hasn't made the rounds for her yet on Krakoa, and hopefully it never does. Number 21, Feather Arm Emma. Since moving to Krakoa, Emma hasn't really worn one single steadfast garment to call her costume, whereas pretty much everyone else has been seen making the rounds of their superhero outfits of yore. Emma has opted to go with a rotating wardrobe of lots of different new garments, rarely to be seen wearing the same thing twice. And I mean, it feels very Emma Frost to do that. Some of the outfits I think are great and I hope to see more of, whereas others are a little bit more ho-hum to me. And I hate to say it, but this feather-armed bodysuit was one of the most hoest of hums. Emma was seen wearing this during the early days of the Marauder series while she was enacting one of her many manipulations over Sebastian Shaw. I really hated how the X-Office painted Sebastian as someone who was incompetent during Marauders. He's supposed to be like a mastermind and have a super intimidating presence, but he keeps getting one-upped by Emma and Kitty to the point that it's making him seem like a joke. At the very least, he did manage to temporarily kill Kitty, which was a great blow to Emma's plans, and it gave him that menacing supervillain temperament that is rightfully his. Kitty's death only lasted until her inevitable resurrection, so even though it was great seeing one of his plots fully executed, we also knew it was only temporary, transient win for him over these X-girls, and so the whole thing just kind of felt a bit cheap, and he's been Emma's punching bag pretty much ever since. I like watching Emma get cocky, but I expect Sebastian to match her in cockiness as well. Otherwise, the battlefield doesn't even feel level, and so the feud just isn't as interesting as it could be. This feather-armed outfit is only slightly better than the Generation X bodysuit because, in effect, this too is just a white bodysuit. It got some bonus points for the plumage on the arm, but I hate to say that seeing it only on the one side actually makes the garment feel unfinished. Something about the way the feathers just kind of like hang off her real limp-like makes the costume look like an incomplete thought. Like she grabbed it off of Jumbo Carnation's rack even though he protested that it wasn't done yet. And when the feathers aren't looking limp, then they stand out in what looks to be like the wrong kind of way. Like sometimes they are too pronounced to the point that they have Emma looking like she's conjuring up some eldritch armor on her arm like how Illyana used to do back in the 80s when she called forth her soul sword. Maybe if there was more going on with the bodysuit, or if she had like a matching pair of feathered arms, I would like the outfit more. But for now, I just think it needs to go back to the designer. Ultimately, I was disappointed with how this outfit looked on the page, because on the cover for the Marauder solicit, I was like, wow, whatever this outfit is, it looks beautiful. Like, the detail on those feathers made this look really opulent. But now, after seeing the full rotation of this outfit, I think what made it look so great on that cover was the fact that we could only see half of it. After seeing the full thing and in plain sight, I was just kind of like, oh, it's a bit underwhelming. Some birds of a feather are meant to flock together, but unfortunately for me, this one was meant to frock alone. Number 20, Ultimate Emma. Oh man, the poor Ultimate Universe just couldn't get anything right when it came to costuming, at least not for me. I guess that's what you get for trying to deviate away from being too superhero-y and trying to be more edgy in a comic book. You end up with costumes that are too, specific to be iconic. Emma's first costume in the Ultimate Universe is what is featured here on this cover, and it makes her look like a bit of a boxy scientist from the future. In this world, Emma Frost was a government employee who tried to create her own mutant squad based on role modeling and marketability of the mutants. She was a former student/lover of Professor X, but whereas he wanted to create a mutant militia segregated from the world, Emma's vision for the future of mutants was way more peaceful and integrative, and she believed that the premier mutant superhero team should encompass those traits and values instead of being seen as renegades. She assembled some people like the punk rock dazzler of this world, but the team didn't last long because even though they read great in the market research, in practice they just didn't live up to snuff on the battlefield. In terms of this outfit, I actually don't totally mind it. As I said, she's giving off some sexy scientist vibes here, and I do think that the long white trench coat is actually quite nice. It's got a good fit, and I like how it's buttoned all the way up to its high collar and then has an interesting cut at the bottom. It's not really something that Emma of the 616 would be caught dead wearing, but in a way, that's what kind of makes it more interesting to me. I wouldn't say this outfit is particularly beautiful in any sense of the word, but I don't mind it, and I think it's always good to show a little versatility in one's wardrobe, especially when you're known for not wearing much at all. Number 19, Dark X-Men Emma. The Dark X-Men came about during the time when Norman Osborn became the new head honcho for all things superhero. The Skrulls had just been defeated from the Secret Invasion, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was officially in the can, so the government gave Osborn free reign to roll however the hell he wanted to roll, and he decided to shake a bunch of teams up, the X-Men included. Emma was one of his Dark Illuminati members, which was a secret cabal of villains and ex-villains, and through that association, they created the Dark X-Men team, which wasn't really all that dark when you consider who was on the Dark Avengers. I mean, Namor and Cloak and Dagger have been playing hero for years, so it's not like this team was evil through and through the way the Avengers really were. But with Emma at the forefront leading this team, it did seem as though she had betrayed Cyclops and the X-Men and was all in on Norman Osborn's scheme. The Dark X-Men didn't do anything too notable during their brief tenure. They arrested some wayward X-Men and played nice for the media coverage, but overall it was a pretty lackluster team, and Emma's heart was never really in it to begin with. She ended up betraying Norman after she learned that he was keeping Beast and Xavier as prisoners, and the whole arc ended with Namor, Cloak, and Dagger joining Emma in returning to Utopia and fighting off Osborn's Dark Avengers. I'm a huge Cloak and Dagger fan, so even though this arc wasn't anything too special in the end, I still really enjoyed it because anything that puts those two street rats up front and center is A-okay by me. In terms of Emma's outfit, I mean, it's White Queen no more. She was channeling all that Celine Black Queen energy and decided to dress the part. I don't really care to see Emma dressed up as the Black Queen because, woman, stay in your lane, but I don't think this costume looks bad on her either. I like the overall design of it, even though it does look like she might have pulled out that old oversized Gen X belt for this one and strapped it back on. The furry collar of the cape I could probably do without. It's not like it's cold there or anything, so it just comes off like a weird frill on this outfit. But as far as the pants and the top and all that's concerned, I think they both look really nice, and they do a good job in portraying her as a new, darker role. Still, I don't really think black is Emma's color, so unfortunately, I couldn't score this outfit any higher. Number 18, Fishscale Emma. This Fishscale outfit is what Emma wore to celebrate Kate's resurrection. For the life of me, I swear I thought I saw it on at least one other notable time, but in preparing for this video, I conducted a pretty thorough sweep of the line, and I'm pretty sure this was the only time she's ever worn it. There's really not much to say about Emma's characterization during this quote-unquote period of her life, since it's technically still her current period of life. but what can be said was that this was what she was wearing when both Kate and Emma plotted their revenge against Sebastian Shaw for having killed Kate in the first place. I liked this outfit, but just like the feather arm thing, something about it feels unfinished and underwhelming. It's zhuzhy, and that's what I enjoy about it, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, it needs some extra oomph somewhere. Maybe it's like more presence around the collar is needed, like a statement shoulder piece, or maybe that little capelet in the back needs to extend down further. Whatever it is, she's just kind of looking like a female wrestler or a drag queen preparing for a dance number here, and it's missing an element of regalia that makes Emma's costumes so smug. I mean, it's nice overall, and it's pretty, and I do like seeing her in these scales that I think are maybe supposed to be reminiscent of diamond shards, perhaps? It's weird as a resurrection outfit, in my opinion, and would be better suited as like a butt-kicking or night out at the Green Lagoon main stage type of dress. Number 17, Xenogenesis Emma. Oh man, the Xenogenesis series. What a weird moment in time. This is definitely the cheesecakiest of all Emma's portrayals, and I'll let you all decide for yourselves if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The Xenogenesis miniseries took the Astonishing X-Men team to Africa so they could investigate some strange happenings in a little village. The X-Men are hopeful that they'll discover the rebirth of the mutant species here, but it just ends up being their old British foe, the Fury, and an epic battle takes over. Emma's characterization during this series was utterly on point. She was precisely the sassy, stubborn socialite that you expect her to be, but oh man, some of these panels with her are just so cringy. I know it's a stylized art choice on purpose, but I literally laughed out loud, half in amusement and half in cringe when I saw some of the depictions of Emma. I'm not like criticizing the artist's personal taste or anything, but I think this style of design is a very specific taste, and like I'm totally into camp and cheesecake and all that stuff, but I was just very taken by surprise with how heavily the cake was caked on to Emma. It's literally boobs everywhere, which is her thing in her way, but this was like to an outrageous Animaniacs level, so it kind of took it to this cartoony extreme, which at that point stops being what I'm looking for in X-Men comics. I mean, the sum of the parts of her outfit here are all really nice. It's a mini dress with like a boob window, some long platform boots, and that straight heavy hair. I don't really know many fashion references, but I'm getting some sort of like Austin Powers go-go dancer or something from this. I think it's a lot of fun, and I would love to see it drawn by maybe, I don't know, a different artist, just to see what their take on it would be. But the way it was drawn and portrayed in this series, with her like underwear permanently peekabooing all the time, just kind of made it a bit too sleazy and tabloid for me to enjoy the overall effect of the costume. That said, I do love Emma using her sexuality to get her way. It's something that Emma distinctly does in her conquests, so in that way, this costume makes sense for her to be wearing. It's not like all the women in the series were depicted the way Emma was either, so it was certainly a deliberate choice, I think, character-wise, to make Emma come across this way, and I think it's a choice that actually can be supported by who Emma is. We saw her use her sexuality very recently in an issue of Marauders, where she chose to unbutton her blouse to get her way instead of immediately resorting to telepathy, so it's not unlike Emma to flaunt her body overtly like this. I will give this series props for taking a real risk with the art and taking Emma, who was already a risque character herself, and portraying her even riskier. But man, I can't get past some of the crazily overt sexualization here, and I'm like no prude, but some of it had me blushing. I really loved the character work in Xenogenesis, and I think the series certainly has its merits, but I can't say I'll necessarily remember it fondly for its art, and specifically, not really its art of Emma. Number 16, Hellfire Gala outfit number 1. The Hellfire Gala was the big event of summer 2021, and the lead up to it was hyped with all sorts of swanky outfit reveals that the mutants would be wearing. Emma's reveal showed that she would be wearing 3 outfits for the event, and I remember audibly gasping whenever I saw Emma's outfits because I thought all 3 were super gorgeous, and I still do to this day. The first of her outfits for the evening was this huge white fur jacket that encompassed her entire body, with a glorious crystal hat that adorned her head and some Cinderella-esque crystal heels, which can't be too comfortable. I'm saying crystal, but let's be real, they're probably diamonds. This was one of the more ostentatious outfits at Hellfire Gala, but I thought it was done in a classy way without being too try-hard. Emma's outfit here exemplifies the difference between trying to stand out for standing out's sake, and then standing out simply by means of looking good. There were lots of Hellfire Gala outfits that I thought were just there to get a reaction, but this is one that I think merits getting the reaction because it's just so beautiful. There's a side of me that wants to shout, but it eats her up, it doesn't give her any shape, there's no body, but I kind of like that about it. I like that she's just one big puff of fur here taking up space. Part of being a hostess is having a presence, and in this outfit, Emma most certainly has a presence, even if it's just her standing there. It's kind of unfair pitting this outfit against her crime-fighting outfits in a ranking like this, because there's nothing practical at all about this one that could give her an upper hand in a fight, but I mean, none of her costumes really lend themselves to any practicality in a fight, so I guess it's kind of even Stevens. Emma didn't do a whole lot in this outfit during the gala. She pretty much only wore it to welcome everyone to the event and then to get the show started by introducing Rhapsody and the telepathic sextet. I can't really blame her for wanting a quick change out of it either, because it had to be boiling underneath all that fur. But heavy is the head that wears the crystal crown of fashion, and Emma most certainly wore it well on this night. Number 15, Extinction Team Emma. The schism between Cyclops and Wolverine divided the X-Men into 2 competing worlds of philosophy. Wolverine wanted to go back to basics, and so he opened the Jean Grey School and invited mutants to study and learn, whereas Cyclops maintained his military mindset and wanted mutants to be prepared to fight battles against their oppressors with his own new Xavier School. Emma opted to remain with Cyclops during this time, and she was made a member of his Extinction Team, which was essentially a group of heavy hitters who would handle the threats made to mutant kind. It was like a super team of people, and they went around fighting other super level threats like Mr. Sinister and Unit. This was also the beginning of when trouble started brewing in Emma and Scott's relationship, as the lust between Emma and Namor became more and more apparent. Cyclops' concern about Emma started waning a little bit as well, like when she lost her arm in battle with Sinister, and he didn't really seem to care too much with the process that it took her to reattach it. As far as this costume goes, it's one of her nicer white bodysuits, in my opinion. I prefer how this one is cut at the top compared to how the other ones were. This one just seems to have a bit more personality, and it says Emma a lot more than the other bodysuits do. I mean, that's probably because this one is more revealing than those ones, but hey, that's her brand. I also prefer Emma's accessories in this bodysuit compared to her other ones. The X belt actually looks subtle, and it's like an extension of the same garment here, whereas the X belt of her Generation X costume really stood out in like a sore thumb kind of way. There are lots of nice subtleties about this bodysuit that make it more unique than the other ones, like how the cuffs of her sleeves are slightly oversized compared to the rest of the arm, and even just that choker with the X symbol on her neck is a nice touch. She didn't wear this costume for a long time because the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline began shortly afterwards, but I wouldn't be mad if this costume came back for a spell or 2. It still feels like it has some fight left in it, even if it's just another bodysuit. Number 14, Headmistress Emma. Emma has been a teacher for a good portion of her adult life, and this was one of the outfits she wore when she took up teaching at Xavier's School after Generation X disbanded. Before being at Xavier's, though, she was briefly teaching at Genosha while it was ruled by Magneto, and this was the exact outfit that she wore when Genosha was decimated by Cassandra Nova. In the wake of the devastation, it was the first time we ever saw Emma's secondary mutation of diamond skin take form, and she manifested it just in time to protect herself from being one of the 16 million mutants killed by the Sentinel attack. I love seeing Emma in a classroom. As much as I adore her haughty rich bitch attitude, I think she is only ever fully realized when she is teaching. It's really what she was meant to do. At her core, Emma wants mutant children to succeed and flourish, and that's what her real motivation is as a whole for her character. The children are what drive her in the fight for mutant rights, partially as atonement for what happened when the Hellions were in her care, but also just because that's what she believes in the most. I think this was Emma's breakthrough moment in the X comics. She had always been a fan favorite, but was pretty much like a secondary player until now, and I think her portrayal here in New X-Men catapulted her into the superstardom that she's familiar with now. In terms of this outfit, I think it's great. It's practical without being too revealing, and I think the trench coat adds a lot of really fun Gambit-like elements to Emma that we don't really get to see in her costuming often. She didn't always wear this trench coat with this outfit though, and whenever she didn't wear the trench coat, I actually felt that the costume looked less complete than when she did wear the trench coat. But overall, I thought this was an easy return into the X-Fold kind of costume for her to wear that was still very Emma without being too in-your-face Emma. Number 13, Hellfire Gala outfit number 2. Emma's second Hellfire Gala outfit is actually the outfit that she wore for the majority of that event. She was wearing it while she schmoozed and boozed with all of the non-Krakoan guests like Captain America and the Shi'ar, and it's also what she was wearing when she confronted Sage with the trouble that was brewing with the Terra Verde ambassadors. When I was ranking my initial reactions to the Hellfire Gala outfits back when they were first revealed, I placed Emma as my top overall pick because I just thought it was so perfect of her to have 3 gorgeous outfits for one singular event. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't really too enamored with the design of this second outfit. I just thought it fell kind of flat in comparison to the other two. It's basically just a little bodysuit with a few white accoutrements on it, and to me that didn't really sell the garment in the way that other gala garments were being sold. But then when I saw it on the page, and especially on that gorgeous cover for the Marauders tie-in issue, I totally changed my tune. I thought it looked really, really beautiful, and somewhat classy even, just by her having the sleeves with the long trained cape attached to them. The hat I was always a little bit iffy on, just because it kind of makes her head look like it's a planet. But maybe it was supposed to represent her psionic signature, so I get it. The only part that I still don't really like here is the shoes, because it just looks like she threw some white coverings over the diamond shoes from her first look, and it reads kind of sloppy to me, which is not something Emma Frost is known for. I think overall, though, this look was way more of a hit than the miss I had originally thought it might have been, and I think it was just the correct outfit choice for her to spend the majority of the Hellfire Gala in while she schmoozed and boozed. Number 12, giant-sized Emma. This outfit is another one that's in Emma's rotation of Krakoan outfits, and it was one that was most notably worn the giant-sized X-Men Jean Grey and Emma Frost issue, when she and Jean entered Storm's psyche to perform some quiet psychic surgery in an homage to the new X-Men number 121 issue, where they had a similar team-up situation, but instead of Storm, it was to rescue Charles Xavier from Cassandra Nova's mind. This was a really gorgeous issue, and I think one of the better ones of the Giant Size series. It was fun watching Emma and Jean team up this way after all that has gone down between them and Cyclops and everything else. Even though these two characters will never be friends, and nor should they, in my opinion, I like seeing them paired up and behaving cordially with each other, if not with an underlying sense of contempt for each other. In terms of the outfit, I think this one has an air of elegance and sophistication that most of her other costumes don't have. It looks very high-end, and I think that's mostly because of the way she has accessorized it with the tiny glovelets and the fur-collared short jacket. It's all very swanky. Even the way her hair is styled here with like that subtle pushback over one of her ears just brings this whole look together into feeling like it's a more trendy outfit than Emma is accustomed to wearing. And for that reason, I like it a lot. Number 11, Fugitive Emma. This was the look Emma wore during the Mutant Revolution era, when Cyclops and herself were jail-sprung from their respective prisons where they were being held after the Phoenix Force debacle, and they led an underground team of X-Men who were pretty much on the run from the law while simultaneously trying to help and recruit new mutants. This team was in stark contrast to Wolverine's team, who was still running the Jean Grey school, and it was fun to see how Wolverine was now the straight-laced headmaster of the more, official school, and how Cyclops was now the renegade running the makeshift New Xavier school. I enjoy when the script gets flipped like this. These two characters were always painted as polar opposites of each other, but no one would ever have expected them to end up in the roles that they did, with Wolverine being the good guy and Cyclops being the bad guy. It was a great subversion of expectations. Emma and Cyclops both suffered damage to their mutant abilities after their dance with the Phoenix, and Emma recruited the Cuckoos to the school in order for them to help retrain her in recontrolling her telepathy. Emma and Cyclops were also freshly broken up with at this point, so it was fun watching them still work together, even though the dust of their breakup had barely settled. To say this was a darker period in Emma's journey would be an understatement. Her sass was colder and more cutthroat than ever before, and she seemed to lack the jovial, careless spirit that usually follows her around. I think the dankness of her situation got to her, and it made her a less fun person to be around than usual, hence the dark clothes. Normally, I don't care to see Emma in black, but given the turn of her character during this era and the gravity of the situation she was in, I can see why she took up with the dark side. Pretty much everyone else was wearing black costumes too, and while Emma isn't one to follow the crowd, I think it was a good move on her part to stick with the color scheme because it gave them all a much more severe presence when they were all together. The actual design of the costume I also do really enjoy. It's very Lady Mastermind in the way it impractically strips down the middle with that huge gaping stripe, but again, who reads comic books for their realism? It's actually ironic that I think this outfit reminds me of Lady Mastermind, because Emma once told Regan to her face that her outfit makes her look low class. So I mean, if Emma's dressing that way now, then has she changed her tune on Lady Mastermind's wardrobe? Or is she just acknowledging that her ex-team has fallen down a few rungs on the social ladder? I think my favorite parts of this outfit are the skinny black trench coat with the bulky football shoulder pads and the huge overstated belt buckle. And even though I approve of this whole ensemble being black, I can't help but wonder what it would have looked like had she gone with white, and I struggle to fully reconcile this costume in the great pantheon of Emma's costumes simply because of the color choice. Picky, I know, but hey, that's what these rankings are all about. Number 10, New X-Men Emma. Kicking off my top 10 of this list is Emma's other new X-Men outfit. When she wasn't wearing her teaching outfit, she was usually wearing this one, or some combination of them both. As I talked about earlier, Emma's run in New X-Men really helped to cement her as a main player in the X-Men's world, and it's why I think she is the only quote-unquote modern new member who has joined the X-Men to really have achieved the same level of popularity as the other, more legacy characters. Probably the most notable thing about Emma during this era was the psychic affair that she instigated with Cyclops that led to the dissolution of his and Jean Grey's relationship. I want to say that it started off innocently enough between those two, with Emma acting as a sort of psychic therapist for Cyclops, giving him room to vent and say things that he couldn't say to Jean directly, but was any of it ever really innocent? Emma was still highly manipulative and untrusting during this time, and I'm pretty sure she was working on Scott's seduction since the onset of their sessions. This was definitely a power flex for her against Jean, as Emma just wanted to show her up. Like how Selene was Emma's foil within the Hellfire Club, Emma was Jean's foil here in the X-Men. She was like Jean's shadow self and had an attitude and like a flair that Jean could never possess. At the very least, Emma's flirtation really did turn into true love for Cyclops, so the whole affair and the breakup wasn't done in vain. I think Emma's successful, corruption of Cyclops here really helped shape Cyclops' character as well, and it gave him more depth away from the old Boy Scout personality that he was always associated with. Emma helped to give him a brand new edge that Jean never really would have been able to, and even though I think Cyclops and Jean are the penultimate couple in X-Men comics, I actually think he's a lot more fun and enjoyable and tolerable a character when he's with Emma. Now, as far as this outfit goes, it is definitely one of Emma's more revealing ones. I love Little Cheesecake as much as anyone else, but I don't care for it to go too far, and this one borders on being too far for me. I mean, the top alone, if you can call it that, is basically just what? Two pasties? There's really not a lot of fabric here to talk about, which is both my criticism of it and also, in a stranger way, its appeal. Even though I'm not sure how it's all staying on there, it does look overall uncomplicated, which is a bonus. There's not a lot of bingles and bangles hanging all over the place, so it's super clean, and I want to say it has smooth lines, whatever that means, but it looks like it's just been tailored perfectly to her body. It's really pretty simple when you boil it down, and sometimes simple is just what works best. My favorite aspect of this outfit is the shoes, and bless Emma Frost for daring to go into battle with the sky-high Baby Spice platforms. I gotta applaud the all-around confidence that Emma demonstrates while wearing this. Not only is she not afraid to show off her body, but she dares to potentially break an ankle or two as well, and that's the real kind of hero we want from the X-Men. She's just a bad bitch who is not to be bothered with, and in this outfit, she damn well knows it. Number 9, Phoenix 5 Emma. Now this is a glorious costume. Emma was one of the 5 Phoenix hosts when the Force came back to Earth looking for hope, but the Force got diverted by Iron Man and it ended up in a random bunch of X-Men instead. Together with the other Phoenix 5, Emma began reshaping the Earth in what they considered to be their image of perfection and peace, and specifically for Emma, that entailed eradicating all traces of anti-mutant technology such as Sentinels. The Avengers eventually went to war with the Phoenix 5 over their omnipotent rule over Earth, and the whole thing ended with Cyclops absorbing the full Phoenix Force and manifesting his own Dark Phoenix persona and killing Professor X before Hope and the Scarlet Witch banished the Phoenix from Earth together. This debacle also marked the end of Emma and Cyclops' relationship, as Emma confessed to having a psychic affair with Namor, much like Cyclops had with Emma back in the day. I mean, you know what they say about psychic affairs, once is never enough. I was totally shocked when the Phoenix 5 became a thing. It was so out of left field for me, and I thought the Phoenix returning to Earth was totally just gonna go possess Hope or just resurrect Jean or something boring like that, so I definitely commend Marvel on giving a twist that I didn't expect. As far as Emma's Phoenix form goes, I think she looks a lot like an Amazon warrior princess. It's definitely got aspects of like Wonder Woman and Hippolyta to it, particularly in the way it looks like she's wearing those strappy Grecian style boots, and I just think she looks super sexy and intimidating without it being overboard or too much. When I think of the Jean version of this outfit, I immediately consider the White Phoenix of the Crown costume. It's got similar color tones as Emma's here, but I think putting these two side by side really helps demonstrate how different these two women are in their personal tastes. And even though this is I think the first time we've ever seen Emma really dabble in gold, I think she pulls it off extremely well. It's usually always white and diamonds with her, but this white and gold mix looks just as fantastic, and I dare say she should dabble in warmer colors more often. Number 8, House of X Emma. When the plans for Krakoa first started taking shape, Emma was one of the primary people who Xavier and Magneto approached to get on board with the idea and to sit on their quiet council. They convinced her to bring the Hellfire Corporation into the game as the exclusive distributor of the Krakoan wonder drug, and she would serve as the face of their legitimate trade dealings all across the globe. Emma was also the person who saved Sabretooth from having to deal with the human prison system after he was held trial for his little slaughterfest at Damage Control. The Fantastic Four had initially apprehended him, and even though Cyclops tried to bargain his release on the spot, it didn't take, and he ultimately pleaded guilty to all the charges in court. It took Emma Frost barging into the courthouse wearing this fabulous number and vaguely threatening the human judicial system under the guise of Krakoan diplomatic immunity for the court to agree to hand Sabretooth over to her so that they could dole out their own mutant justice to him. From there, Sabretooth was sentenced to spend the rest of his days exiled in the hole, but with the brand new Sabretooth miniseries coming out soon, I can't wait to read about his inevitable jailbreak. Of all the new costumes that Emma has been wearing around Krakoa, this one is probably my favorite. I think it does a very good job of marrying some classic Emma silhouettes into a kind of contemporary but mostly retro look. The big fur cloak is a nod to her White Queen role back within the Hellfire Club, but what mostly catches my eye is the white mini dress. Something about it feels very 60s to me, which is funny because the 60s is when the X-Men debuted and when Jean Grey started wearing her little green Marvel Girl dress that she is still wearing to this day. And if I put these two side by side, I can't help but wonder if Emma is trying to one-up Jean here in the mini dress department because it's got like a similar shape but a more interesting cut. Now that Cyclops and Jean are back together again, I hope to God that Emma isn't going to regress and backtrack into chasing after Scott. But I don't mind the idea of Emma competing with Jean regardless of the man candy involved. I really enjoy their happy rivalry, and they kind of coexist as frenemies now on Krakoa. Like, they're colleagues who can work together and grab a drink together, but they aren't going to spend quality time with each other, and I like that there's that distance between them. And so I can't help but wonder if Emma saw Jean wearing that dress and thought, that old thing, I'll do you one better, and then she had this slinky little white number made. I'm totally over Jean's dress, but Emma's gives the look a refreshing new spin, and I wouldn't mind if Emma decided to make this more of her full-time look. Number 7, Hellfire Gala outfit number 3. The final outfit that Emma wore during the Hellfire Gala was also her best one. This is the one that really made my jaw drop when it was first revealed, and I thought it was completely stunning head to toe. This was the outfit she was wearing when she connected all of the guests' mind at the end of the gala and gave way to the big reveal of the X-Men having terraformed Mars. She also met up with a few diplomatic emissaries whilst in this gorgeous gown, like the British ambassadors who told her that they were going to cut ties with Krakoa, and 2 people from a nameless city in a hidden society from whom she asks for something called the Kara Kutusa, which I'm pretty sure we still don't know anything about yet. I mean, this outfit is pretty much perfection from diamond head to diamond toe. I love the sparkling fringe that covers pretty much nothing on her diamond body, but because it's diamond on diamond, it all looks like it's just one big outfit. I don't think it works as well when she's not in her diamond form though, and when she's just wearing it with like her regular skin, it actually doesn't look great at all. I also don't care for the white gloves and the white ankle straps with this look. I think it would have been stronger if it was 100% diamond throughout and throughout without those little pops of color. The best part of it for me is that slicked back hair. I think it mirrors the draping of the fringe really well, and so the whole thing just looks super sleek and like it's $1 billion. Number 6, new Tian Emma. The new Tian saga was a dark time in the X-Men line. Marvel was trying to sideline the mutants to make way for Inhuman mania, and so the X-Men comic line was pretty much sliced and diced, and whatever stories we did get from them were not so great. There was an X-Men versus Inhuman storyline where the Inhumans' Terrigen mists were infecting the mutant population and giving them the Mpox, which was basically just an accelerated legacy virus, and it was just another thing that was killing off the mutant species. Emma kind of ended up being the big bad of that series after she sought revenge against the Inhumans for their part in Cyclops' death, and the Inhumans and the X-Men had to team up to take her down. This all led to Emma becoming more of a villainous role in the X-Men's world again, and so eventually she became the secret leader of a new sovereign nation for mutants called New Tian, which was pretty much just all of California, with Utopia being its capital. On the surface, Zorn was the new Tian leader, but behind the scenes, Emma was controlling him, and she had formed her own inner circle of sorts, consisting of herself, Bastion, Miss Sinister, and a personality-inverted Havoc. Their goal was to increase the mutant population, and so they created a super virus called Mothervine that would do just that, but Emma betrayed her own cabal after she learned that the virus subjugated the victims' wills, and she teamed up with the X-Men to stop the virus from being widespread. One of the more personal things Emma did during this era was try to eradicate the younger, time-displaced Cyclops' personality by implanting her own memories of the older Cyclops into his mind. This would have effectively transformed the young Cyclops into the Cyclops that Emma had loved. Even though Emma was over Cyclops and their relationship had been ended for a little bit now, deep down she still loved him, I guess, and missed him, so it was wild to see her try to literally mind control this boy into becoming her former lover. Of course, Jean intervened and it didn't work out for Emma, but this little moment just went to show how broken Emma really was at this point in her life. Even though New Tian didn't last for long and it wasn't my favorite storyline to come out of the X-Men books, I did really enjoy the outfit that Emma wore as the nation's secret ruler. It was a married mix of her Hellfire Club White Queen personality, amplifying the more common X-Men attire that she had been seen wearing for like the past decade or so. I really liked the crisscrossing straps from her top. Even though she wasn't formally associated with the X-Men at this time, it still felt like it was a little nod from her to them being like, yo, I know you think I'm evil again, but really I'm on your side. I thought the high collar with the cape and the little tufts of fur on her shoulders were the highlight here, and they took the outfit from looking like one of her modern superhero outfits into making her feel much more queenly and holier than thou, which is very much the attitude I wanted from Emma at the time. I just think that Emma looked very strong in this outfit, and even though she was a little bit crazy at the time, it was nice seeing her act without morals for at least a little while she was trying to achieve a specific end goal. Number 5, Generation X Teacher Emma. Emma was adopted by the X-Men after her Hellions were slaughtered by Fitzroy and the Sentinels, and though she was a bit of a reluctant houseguest, she really had nowhere else to go. After her consciousness briefly possessed Iceman, where she pushed his powers to their limits, the Phalanx attacked and captured most of the X-Men and were hunting the next generation of mutants with only Emma and Banshee around to save them. The Phalanx was successfully defeated, and this gave birth to Xavier's new school at Emma's converted Massachusetts Academy, where Generation X was formed. Generation X was an awesome new title that gave a breath of fresh air to the X-line at the time, and it was Emma's first foray into being somewhat heroic, even though she was really only in the game for the sake of the students and wasn't actively looking to be a superhero herself. She didn't really have the same star power that she has now back in these Generation X days, but she was still just as quick with the quips as she is today, and in my opinion, Generation X is a severely underrated period of her life. Her and Banshee's relationship often flies under the radar now, but back then, their frenemyship and competing teaching styles were the highlights of the series, and it's a shame that these two aren't depicted as being closer than they actually are. I thought the outfit that she wore for the first half of Generation X was fantastic. It was like a sexy teacher vibe with the corset and the leggings and then the business blazer over top to pull it all together. I mention her hair a lot when judging these outfits because I do really think that it adds a level of flair to them, and I think the short bob here is no exception. I think it complemented Emma's personality really well, almost like the shortness of the cut was meant to mirror the shortness of her responses to Banshee whenever he asked for her explanations or whatever. This is probably one of Emma's more appropriate outfits, as it's not too revealing, which is probably a good thing considering she was serving as a co-headmistress to a bunch of teenagers at the time. I just think that this costume really fit Emma well for this era of her life, and I think she looks gorgeous while still being able to kick total ass. Number 4, San Francisco Emma. After the Messiah Complex storyline, where every mutant on Earth was vying for baby Hope, the X-Men needed a change of scenery from their usual stomping grounds of Westchester, and they relocated to San Francisco, declaring it as a safe haven for all mutants. This was the Manifest Destiny era for X-Men, and it was all about reclaiming good vibes after having the old Xavier Institute destroyed for the last and final time. Emma was a central figure in the X-books by this time, and a lot of the panels around this era were just her and Cyclops talking in bed about their problems with each other, or with the other mutants, or whatever. This was also when Namor joined the X-Men, and when she and he began their little flirtation with each other. He only joined under the basis that Emma would kill Sebastian Shaw, which of course she didn't, but she lied to him and pretended that she did, when really he was being held captive as a prisoner in the X-Men's brig. Some of the major storylines to happen around this era were the Dark Reign, where Emma got involved in Norman Osborn's Cabal, the Secret Invasion, during which the X-Men helped keep San Fran safe from the Skrulls, the formation of Madeline Pryor's Sisterhood, Celine's Necrosha, and of course, the biggest of them all, X-Men vs. Avengers. Emma was a pretty central character in pretty much all of these storylines in like one way or another, and it really did feel like Emma had become the top-selling figure of the X-Men line. This outfit is now one of her more go-to superhero outfits. I think when people think of contemporary Emma Frost, this costume might be the one that they conjure up in their minds. I think it's quintessential Emma, and it nails pretty much everything that she likes in a costume. It's white, it's sexy, it's moderately functional, and it's a bit scantily clad. I can't help but enjoy this costume as well. I like the stringy little corset thing that she uses at the top and the cape that's attached to it with the X badge as her branding. It's not really much to talk about, to be honest, but sometimes simplicity is key, and with Emma, usually simple works best because there's already so much going on with her that she doesn't need the clothes to compete with herself. I think this is a great costume, and it's a great segue into my number 3 selection, Astonishing Emma. So this costume is basically exactly the same as the San Francisco costume, but this one came first and it's just a little bit cleaner in my opinion. I mentioned that simplicity works best with Emma, and this costume is a tad simpler than the other one, pretty much just trading in the laced corset for her typical crop top apparel. The change is small, but it does clean the costume up by getting rid of unnecessary frills that are neither here nor there in terms of function. This was the costume that she debuted in the critically acclaimed Astonishing X-Men series. Emma was pretty much everywhere in the X-Men line at this point, as she was co-headmistress with Cyclops at the school with her own new squad of Hellions, and she was helping Havoc with his X-Men team, and she even became an avatar for the Phoenix very briefly when it came back to Earth desperately seeking Jean Grey. But all those things aside, the Astonishing book is really where Emma was fully realized as a character during this era. The Astonishing Team was written so well, and a highlight of the series was definitely the relationship between Emma and Kitty. Emma was constantly a thorn in Kitty's side, as these two did not get along whatsoever, but Emma knew that Kitty would keep her honest, so it was a double-edged sword. They have a complicated history with each other, so forcing them to work together on this team was definitely a choice, but these are the kind of team dynamics that make a book super fun to read, so I appreciated the team up. The Astonishing Team did some cool stuff like fight a giant bullet and stop the release of a mutant cure, and they also freed the sentient Shi'ar alien Danger from the Danger Room where she was being held captive against her will for years and years. Probably Emma's biggest story during this initial Astonishing era was whenever she was infected with Cassandra Nova's consciousness. She was made to believe that she was evil again and part of a new Hellfire Club, but the whole thing just ended up being Emma's own psychic insecurity acting out against the X-Men, and none of the Hellfire Club members were actually real. So this costume was the one that was around the most for these contemporary Emma storylines, and it's probably the one she has frequented the most over the past 15 years. I think it's a great representation of who Emma is as a character, as she's unapologetically flaunting what she's got, but in a classy kind of way. It's usually a toss-up between this one or the San Francisco costume as to which one she's going to wear during a battle, but since they are both pretty much one and the same, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference which one she chooses, because she's just going to look fabulous no matter what before she steps onto the battlefield. Number 2, Hellions leader Emma. One of the defining core moments of Emma's character history is whenever she was the teacher of the Hellions. The Hellions were essentially created as an antithesis team to go up as the nemesis for the New Mutants. Like their name suggests, the Hellions were the bad kids under Emma's tutelage at the Hellfire Club, whereas the New Mutants were the goody-goody superhero types who were schooling at Xavier's. Some of the best issues from the original New Mutant series was whenever these two teams crossed paths, because what made them interesting is that they were all of the same age and essentially contemporaries with each other, but the Hellions had looser morals and murkier ethics than the New Mutants did. Emma was constantly on the recruit for her squad, and she tried to get Kitty Pryde and Firestar to join it, but most people saw the Hellfire Club for what it really was and wanted nothing to do with her. Magma was one of the only characters to actually transfer from the New Mutants to join the Hellions, but she was probably being controlled by empaths around that time, so I don't know if it really counts. As much as being a teacher was important to Emma, she kind of did herself dirty by not teaching these guys great teamwork skills, and it really showed later whenever Fitzroy led the Sentinels to the Hellfire Club and pretty much all of her Hellions were killed on the spot. This was the critical juncture for Emma's character, and she ended up in a coma for a while because of the ordeal, but the death of the Hellions is ironically one of the best things to have happened to her, because after she woke up from the coma and remembered everything that happened, she decided to turn over a new leaf and atone for her past by giving superheroing a go. Guilt can be a heavy motivator, and nothing weighs more on Emma's conscience than having led the Hellions to their early graves. In terms of the outfits she wore during her tenure as Hellions Headmistress, they kind of varied between the usual gamut of full clothed to somewhat naked. Sometimes she wore a corset pants combo, and other times it was like straight up bikini bottoms. She was still White Queen of the Hellfire Club at this point, so the scantily clad nature of her clothing choices were on par with a typical dress code. Something that was consistent during this era though, and what was my absolute favorite part of the costuming, was her cape with those pointy shoulders. They are stunning! If you are a villainess trying to make it in the supervillain world, then listen up, because if your shoulders aren't cut severe enough to poke somebody's eye out, then baby, you are only putting in half the effort. How else were we to know just how evil Emma was without those shoulders giving it away? They tell a story, and the story is that she's a bad, bad girl. One of my favorite villainesses in the world is Zaide from the Neverending Story 2, and I thought her shoulders were always pretty impressive, but now I think Emma has really given her a run for her money with these ones. Another aspect with the cape that I enjoy is the circular clasp that she uses right in the front. It's big, it's ostentatious, and it's the only aspect of actual jewelry she's wearing, so why not give it a prime location like right above her bosom? The only thing I don't really care for in this costume are the multi-leveled boots. Sometimes they go up high on one leg and cut real low on the other leg. Is this supposed to look good? Because I really don't think it does. Maybe that was the Hellfire Club's attempt at looking more superhero-y, but to me, it just looks kind of messy and like she couldn't decide which length of boot to wear, so she decided to wear both. Maybe it's supposed to add a bit of camp and silliness to Emma's costume, but given the height and sharpness of the shoulders, I think we have enough camp to contend with, and a single length boot would have been just fine. Number 1, White Queen Emma. As if there could be any doubt for which costume would be number 1. Emma Frost's Hellfire Club White Queen couture is iconic. It's how the character was first introduced way back in Uncanny X-Men number 129, and it's pretty much what she's been known for the entire existence of her character, even though she wasn't directly tied to the Hellfire Club for like a good 20 years or so. There have been plenty of contemporary references to the time that she spent as the White Queen, and it's a role that she will never escape so long as her character may live, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing for her. Emma is the epitome of a bad girl gone good, because even though she did despicable things while she was the White Queen, like switch bodies with Storm, and help mastermind corrupt Phoenix, and manipulate Firestar into almost assassinating Selene, but actually resulting in the death of her poor horse Butterrum, Emma still managed to come back from all of those Mars against her name and do a whole lot of good, even if it took a long time for people to trust her. What I like most about Emma today is that she hasn't lost the spunk that she had when she was the White Queen. She's a bit softer, but there's still an impenetrable iciness to her that comes out in moments of stress or boredom, or if she just plainly doesn't like someone. That's what's most compelling about Emma Frost as a character, and it's why she's one of the most popular characters of today. Emma was cutthroat in climbing the ranks of the Hellfire Club, and she looked great while she did it. Even though the club's dress code screams objectification of women, Emma had an interesting exchange with one of the maids in a backup story of classic X-Men, where she explained that these clothes are what give her power over the men of the club, and she actively exploits her own body on purpose in order to get what she wants. I mean, that's still kind of sexism. It's just her harnessing the sexism to achieve her own ends, which is mighty entrepreneurial of her. This mindset of using sexuality as her body armor doesn't change over the years, and it's apparent in the outfits that she wears, right up to the current days of Krakoa when she recently unbuttoned her blouse in order to woo a few men in her favor. Emma knows her body can be both her armor and her weapon, and she knows how to use them as both figuratively and literally. I think the point she's making is that she's the one who's choosing how and when to use her sexuality, and when she does, it's only ever to achieve her own goals instead of being exploited by others to achieve their goals. I'm a total sucker for the skimpy White Queen apparel, partially because I find it so ridiculous, but also because I enjoy the Hellfire Club's general dress code theme of being like stuck in the 18th century. I like that the club is this superpower with old school values, because I don't personally agree with that in general, so it helps to add another dimension of villainy to them for me. I also just think that she looks great in what she's wearing, like those long boots with the opera gloves and the impossibly cinched corset and the big furry cape are none of them fit for battle, but Emma wasn't doing any fighting that wasn't taking place on the astral plane during these days, so she didn't need to dress the part of a warrior. Hers was always a refined stratagem that she could enact from either behind the scenes or from far away, and so with that in mind, why not go ham with the outfit and simply dress in whatever the hell you want? And that's it for my Emma costume review. Wow, if you sat through this whole video, congratulations. It was no small feat to make, and I'm sure it was no small feat to watch either. Please let me know what you think of my ranking in the comments, and if you agree or disagree, and what you think some of Emma's best or worst costumes have been. If you like this video, please be sure to check out my series of other costume ranking videos. Slowly but surely, I'll be making one on everyone who's been given the Russell Dauterman cover treatment. I also do review videos and character spotlights on my channel, so check out my other stuff and maybe you'll find something else to your liking. I want to thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me today, and I welcome you to come back again soon for more great X-Mentations.